First off, I just want to say that I loved Chucky as a kid. I grew up on these movies. In fact, when I was a kid, he was up there with the big three with me. Actually, I probably liked him better than Freddy Krueger, although I wouldn't say that now. But I have to admit, I fell out of love with the good guy doll. While my flame for Michael and Jason has only grown with age, Chucky just doesn't do it for me anymore. No, it's not because I'm an adult now and I outgrew him. It's because the more I saw him, the less I liked him. I hate the term that something hasn't aged well, because to me, quality is universal. But yeah, Chucky hasn't aged well with me. I'm not saying the series isn't good, because it is. I'm just saying I really wish they had just gave up after the third movie. Even the funniest jokes aren't funny anymore after you hear them too often, especially when the punchlines keep getting worse. That said, let's get with it. Cult of Chucky. Yeah, it really says a lot when a series with Seed of Chucky in it isn't the worst in the franchise, but to me this is even worse. I have a confession to make. The first time I saw it, I actually didn't technically finish it. I made it about 2/3 in and I said, this sucks, and I just deleted it. I despise Freddy's Dead and Halloween Resurrection, the worst films of their franchise, but I never had the urge to just quit them midstream, which shows you how bad this is. For this list, I went back and watched it again. Yeah, I made the supreme sacrifice for you guys, so be appreciative, because this is terrible. Even bringing back Andy didn't help, and now there's a bunch of Chuckies, as if one wasn't annoying enough. Yeah, it sucks. Let's move on. Seed of Chucky, often considered the worst for understandable reasons. This is the movie where Don Mancini becomes an annoying preacher. You see, Don Mancini, the brainchild of the series, is gay. Well, that's his business, but somewhere along the line he decided that he wanted to be an apologist for gay and trans issues. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this kind of thing can't be handled well. I love Sleepaway Camp. I like Rocky Horror. For God's sake, I even really dig Nightmare on Elm Street too. But this is just annoying. I don't come to watch a Chucky movie for social commentary. I come for the inventive kills, the great chase scenes, and Chucky cracking jokes. I don't want to be preached to about gay and gender issues. I could just watch the news or a Disney movie for that. And by the way, I don't think this movie worked the way it was supposed to. You see, Chucky and Tiffany now have a kid named Glenda, who isn't sure if he's a boy or a girl, and the confusion causes him to be occasionally homicidal. So what? Don, you're saying gender dysphoria causes people to kill? I know that's not what you intended, but it's hard to take it any other way. The film leaves horror behind for some really corny, unfunny humor and blah blah blah. I agree with everyone else. This is awful. At least the train wreck disaster of the plot at least keeps me somewhat engaged, and that's why it's slightly better than Cult. Curse of Chucky is often considered Chucky's big comeback, which I guess it is, if you consider that Seed of Chucky and Cult of Chucky are unwatchable, and this at least can be watched with minimum discomfort. But no, I think it still sucks. I do like Brad Dourif's daughter as Nika, the hero in the wheelchair. She actually looks just like dear old dad. You might think it was nepotism that got her here, and maybe it was, but I actually like her. But I don't like Chucky here. To me, this is the first movie where Chucky gets to be unlikable. They tried to go back to the dark tone of the original three, which is admirable, but it just doesn't work for me. Oh yeah, the Chucky series sucks. Just a bunch of really whiny, unlikable teenagers with their problems and an unlikable Chucky chasing them. In all fairness, I only watched the first season, but everyone I hear says the other 2 seasons were even worse. So I feel justified in saying that this series blows. Bride of Chucky is often considered a fan favorite, but it's never really done it for me. I have warmed up to it over the years. I used to think it sucked, but now I think it's basically okay. But I just don't understand the appeal. I guess it was neat to have another monster have a bride, but ultimately, this is the movie where the series began to fall off the tracks. The Tiffany angle was nice for a one-movie idea, but to keep her going was really bad for the series, and she becomes really insufferable after this. The series until then always had a little black humor, but it was always a pure horror series until then. This is the first movie where the horror begins to slide. Though honestly, this movie is actually kind of funny. To me, it's a poor horror film, but a decent little comedy. The scene where Chucky and Tiffany get it on, and Tiffany says, "Got a rubber?" And Chucky says, "Baby, I am rubber," is really cute. And I love Chucky's new slashed up look. Unfortunately, I miss Andy, and the new characters are really forgettable. Yeah, I know this is an unpopular opinion, because the remake seems to be as hated as the Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street remakes were. But so what? I think the remake is pretty good. To me, it does what a remake is supposed to do. Redo the original, but add a neat twist to it. In all fairness, though, Chucky really does look bad here. Probably the worst looking Chucky ever. While changing the main character was a disaster in Nightmare on Elm Street, it was a good idea here. I love Brad Dourif, don't get me wrong. He's not the reason why I grew annoyed with Chucky. But honestly, the traditional Chucky had gotten really old. Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker, is a great voice actor. He did the voice for the Joker in the greatest superhero cartoon of all time, Batman the Animated Series. And he replaces Brad here, and I think he actually does a pretty good job. In this film, Chucky is no longer a doll with the soul of a serial killer. Now he's just a rogue doll who starts off sympathetic and well-meaning, who just wants to take care of his owner, but he gets carried away and eventually his owner turns on him, and the broken-hearted doll in turn goes against his master. The movie is also really gory, which is a plus. Honestly, I wish the whole Chucky thing would die off, but if they insist on a sequel, I would rather they make one after this remake instead. Child's Play 3 is wildly hated for reasons I'll never understand, because to me this movie is really cool. Now Andy has grown into a teenager, and now he's at a boot camp, and Chucky returns to attack some other kid, with Andy being upgraded to mentor and protector of that kid. Obviously, the way Chucky dies at the end is iconic, and the scene where Chucky switches the fake bullets with the real ones, and everyone accidentally kills each other, is worth the film's existence alone. I made a top 100 list, and I had Child's Play 2 on it, but I felt kind of bad. You see, this movie has always been one of my all-time favorites, but I felt that I let my personal love of it overshadow my objective side. But later on, I found out that I wasn't alone, because this seems to be the most popular film in the series besides the original, and for good reason. And there's even a small but vocal minority who like this one the best. Not only do we get Andy back, which is great because the series started to blow as soon as Andy left and it lost its focus, but we also get a hot foster sister to protect him. The bonding between the two troubled kids is really touching, and the chase scene at the end seriously rivals the original for best ever. Which brings me to, yes, the original. Still the best. The film does something the rest of the films lack, which is keep Chucky in the shadows. Every time you see Chucky, it's an event, and you don't really see him up close and personal, at least animated with full personality, until about halfway through the film. He is never annoying, and if he had stayed this way, the way that he stayed in the original 3 films, he would still deserve his icon status. The sequels were more flamboyant, but the more grounded original is always the best to me. I don't think any of these films are scary at all, but this is the film that comes the closest to being scary. In the first scene where we see that Chucky is really the serial killer shot down in the beginning of the film, and he all of a sudden just starts cursing and yelling, is a timeless scene. Oh yeah, let's end with a bit of trivia. Did you know that the original idea for this movie was for there not to be a Chucky at all, but for it to actually be a multiple personality of Andy, making Andy the real killer? I'm glad they didn't go with this idea, but it's still interesting. Oh yeah, the film also features my very favorite scene of the entire series. When Chucky is about to get killed by Andy, and he says, "I thought we were friends to the end." And then Andy says, "This is the end, friend." And this review is ending too. See you later on the Hillbilly Review channel.